Today's guest is an absolute icon in the animal rescue world. In order to properly introduce him, allow me to set the scene.
Here we go.
The year is 2020. It's the midst of the pandemic. We are in Pasadena with our fosters, intaking new dogs from a very remote, faraway shelter. They were scared and unsocialized. One of our fosters instinctively picked up his dog and carried her to his car. Unfortunately, once in the car, the door wasn't shut quickly enough and she darted out. Our frightened little cattle dog disappeared quickly down the busy street and into the night. The first thing we did was take off after her. While in hot pursuit, we received a tip about this elusive dog catching guru who could help find dogs on the run without physically being there. We immediately called him. So here's how it went down. By the next morning, he had helped put together a small army of volunteers who were stationed on many different coordinates around the area. They were given specific instructions on what to do and what not to do. There was a poster made that came with instructions also. Print X amount and hang them in a very specific way on street corners, telephone poles, and trees. There was a conference call going full-time originating from command headquarters with our key players. After 2.5 days of following explicit instructions from a man who literally has some crazy magic and a total sixth sense, our precious little girl was apprehended behind a gate, in a backyard, behind a fountain, exactly where our guest told us she would be. It was at that moment we became absolute believers and his biggest fans. Since then, we have worked on many other rescues with Mike and continue to be in awe of his talent. It is with the greatest pleasure to introduce, in person, our friend Mike Noon.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That was very easy and fun to write, especially since that whole rescue is now a couple of years behind us.
Thank goodness.
And the 10
We've
years
recovered.
the 10 years it took off my life at that point, I hope, has come back. So
that was good.
Yeah, we've had some wild adventures together.
Yeah.
We found ourselves in many an alleyway.
Dark alleyways. Yeah.
Yeah, those are the best.
Oh,
Dogs always
you
go
think
there.
so? How did you discover this sixth sense that you had?
When we're dealing with lost dogs and we have flyers up and that kind of thing, we need the public's input on, hey, I just saw your dog going this way. But that's all we need. But like yesterday, there was a dog that has been running all over the place. And they saw it on the freeway. I think they may have even chased it onto the freeway. And thank God they were actually able to get the dog and the dog's safe and that kind of thing. But it's that panic and that I want to do everything I can to try to help.
Right.
And instinctively, we behave certain ways when we're trying to help, but it's oftentimes the exact opposite of what we need to do. So super counterintuitive.
Totally.
So like with you guys, I mean, I can remember that conversation very well. You're like, are you on your way? I'm not coming.
Yeah. Wait, I'm like,
yeah, and she's like,
I go, wait, am I not hearing you correctly? I'm like, no, you're coming, right? Like, we can't do this alone. Yeah. You're like, no.
Yeah, you can. No, we'll work it out. I mean, if I need to come, I'll come. I think you guys can do it. I think we've got what we need to get it done. And we did. You just needed to believe and commit.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, it's counterintuitive. So if people can buy into that, awesome. So getting back to the question though, of when did I discover it? I don't know. It just kind of comes to me on what we need to do with this dog. How do I need to position myself? Where do we need to apply pressure sometimes to get the dog to do what I need it to do, to get it into a place where, it's more manageable or more catchable, capitalizing on the chaos that I know is already in the brain.
Yeah.
To me, it just flows.
Yeah.
The hard part is convincing everybody else to go along for the ride.
Totally.
And not insert themselves or their own opinions and things like that too much, which I know makes me sound like, I'm something special or whatever. But if we get together as a team and we do this, it really works out.
It tends to. I learned one of my biggest lessons from working with you where you said check your energy. And it's something that we bring up all the time. In many situations, with dogs, without dogs, it's important to understand the energy that you're bringing to a situation.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the panic is not helpful.
Yeah. It was explained to me, just kind of a catchphrase kind of thing. Be responsible for the energy you bring to the room.
Well, that little lesson for me changed my life from that day forward. And that was a little dog named Jack that we were going after, right? And you weren't there for that one either.
Well, he was on the phone. He was on the phone.
He was on the
Almost
phone.
never there,
He
yeah.
was on the bat line. And one of our little dogs, again, unsocialized, frightened, new into the rescue, amazing foster mom, but got away from her at the vet in West LA on Olympic. Crazy street.
Yeah.
And I think it took you, again, 2.5 hours that time to walk us in on that one. Yeah. But basically from over the phone, because I was like, we got to get this dog. We got to get him. My energy at that point was totally unchecked.
Yeah.
And you said to Lindsay, you're like, can you get her out of there?
Yeah, I said, Ellen, check your energy.
So that was a lesson to me. And as soon as I did that, turned my back and let the calm, cool, collected one take over.
Me?
You. We got the dog.
Yeah.
We did. We got the dog.
Thank God.
Yeah. It's amazing. Just the way that they tend to move, how they think when they, and the reality is we don't always have to go to these extremes to catch dogs. But if I prepare everybody for the ultimate chaos in a dog's brain, even if they're not there, we can't make mistakes.
So can you explain that a little bit? Because for whoever's watching this, I mean, I want them to be able to watch this podcast, have some tips, like the next time they see a dog on the run, if you could explain to them like what is happening in that dog's brain and how we should just proceed.
So no matter what, if you've seen a dog running in the street, whatever, running away from, like, a new adopter, taking a dog out for a walk, transporting from a shelter to a foster, the handoffs, transporting across the country, the dog was fine, went out in the middle of nowhere to go pee and the dog takes off. If you're in a traffic accident, the dog bounces out of the car, the dog's brain is spun instantly. Once you get that fear and uncertainty, it's just compounding. And then all of a sudden we've got people skidding to a stop trying to help them or honking the horn when they're crossing the street. I mean, it just is unbelievable chaos. So anything that we do directly toward the dog, any kind of movement that we make toward the dog is not going to be helping. And everybody wants to run up to the dog and go, "Come here, baby." So it's just not going to work. So what can work is to get up and realize that if you, and for those who have followed soccer, play soccer, that kind of stuff, you don't ever go directly at
Of course
the purse
you
for
don't.
the ball.
Yes.
Right? You're kind of swinging wide and changing angles and that kind of thing to push them where it's now uncomfortable, where they're switching feet, where they're not as good with the other foot, that kind of thing.
Noted.
So if we can get a dog that's in traffic, get well ahead of it, and this is where the timing has to be just right. If you present yourself coming in at an angle where there's a soft, a quieter street going this way, you can make that dog avoid you. But if you're too late, they're going to shoot past you.
Right.
So it's all in the flow and in the timing. But if we can get them off of a busy street, that's better. And then stop, chill, be happy that they're not in 8 lanes of traffic or whatever. 2 lanes is better than 8. So maybe there's a yard that it's going to duck into under a boat trailer, whatever. It's just, you have to understand that dog is operating in 100% fear. It's not going to stop for treats.
Never does.
You see a lot of people go, "Oh, just throw some treats at it." They better be frozen and they better be big enough to knock the dog out, because it's not stopping, you guys. Yeah. It's running. So getting people to understand that panic, that full chaos, Very difficult. But if you get ahead of them, and let's say the dog was just in a neighborhood, but trotting at least, if you get way ahead of them, you leapfrog way ahead of them, you get out and you just act as indifferent as possible, they're more likely to come to you because you've got that absolute calm, indifferent energy. Like, whatever. If you're done peeing on the bush, let's go. That kind of thing. But when you're like, I'm going to get you, I got to catch you, and you're projecting this confusion to the dog, that the dog's like,
I'm just wondering if she caught that.
I caught
I just
it.
want to make sure she's taking it in.
I caught it.
We project that energy,
Totally.
and those intentions.
Well, who wants to run up to someone who's chaotic?
Right.
Yeah, right.
And to take that even further, which you've also explained to us, like you can't even walk that energy into the area.
Right.
Even if you're not looking at them, they're going to sense that they're being preyed upon.
Yeah.
And so you have to get that out of your brain also.
Yeah. And that really applies, like, and you had helped, there was that dog up in Mandeville Canyon, right? Was she on the right or the left?
I knew.
Yep. But when you have dogs that are lost in more rural environments, open fields, whatever, human instinct is to go search for them. But they are watching. And you don't understand how when you walk into it, if they're watching, they're already in that chaotic state. They may be breathing more calmly right now, but they're ready to roll. They're just, at any second. And now we invade that space, and we're actively, in their mind, hunting them. We're the cat, and they're the bird, because we're looking. We're 100% predator at that point. And there's a lot of successes of people going looking in the canyons and they find the dog or whatever.
Or the dog jumped into their car.
Yeah.
We always get
Right.
like, how did the dog jump into your car?
Right.
That's amazing.
But the question I always present to people is, how many dogs do you think have never been found because they were pushed? Because a dog that's in fear is going to see, hear, and smell you coming from a long ways away.
Yeah.
Because their senses are sharp. They're on high alert. And they're not going to be there waiting for you, most of them. So again, if we plan on the worst, which is this little girl is just terrified, whether it's in a rural environment or in a neighborhood, we can't make mistakes in the way that we approach. If we think we're going to go in, because this is something I get all the time too, is on owners that have lost their dogs, pet sitters, family, whatever the situation was. They will often tell me, Mike, you don't know my dog. That dog's going to come to me. Mm-hmm. I'm like, in a controlled environment, you're right. I don't know your dog. But in a chaotic one, I do. So how about we just meet there?
It's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
You're going to be surprised when your dog runs away from you.
It's
and
important.
A lot of times it happens. They're like,
yeah.
I know what you mean now. Okay, let's regroup. It's not the end of the world, because when they're running away, they're thinking about you also. So again, as an owner, we leapfrog ahead of them, sit down, just relax.
I see.
But yeah.
I remember one time you told us you have to stay within a certain vicinity when you're looking, whether you're walking, and really you shouldn't drive because driving takes you too far. And I remember you saying, and it stuck with me, and I just want everyone to know it. When you drive and a dog follows your scent, that is how they get on the freeway.
Yeah.
They don't know how to just walk onto the freeway. They're following your scent. Is that?
They can. It's happened. Your scent is so critical. If you've lost your dog and you go roaming all over the place looking for your dog, and as an example, if you've lost your dog while you're on vacation or something like that, or you're up in the mountains, that kind of thing, you are instinctively going to go to the places thinking, oh my God, I hope my dog didn't go here, to the edge of the cliff, right? To the freeway on-ramp, things like that.
But you just led them to the edge of the cliff.
You've led them there. It doesn't always happen, but it does occasionally.
Yeah.
So your scent is the most important thing in recovering your dog, if it's your dog. Your feet, when we come home, dogs always sniff our feet and our butts if they're tall enough, right? Mm-hmm. It's just how they communicate. So if we use that scent of our feet to position it in such a way that it is like the lighthouse on the shore. It's an immovable beacon. The dog's going to be roaming around, and at some point, that wind is going to blow in the direction, and your dog's going to go, oh, I know that nastiness. Mama's over there. But if you've walked all over the place, you're going to confuse that dog. Because at 3 o'clock in the morning, when the world is less chaotic and the dog gets brave enough to go, okay, I've got to figure this out, it may come across your scent. And even walking in shoes, you're producing scent all over the place. You rub up against something, you touch something, it's there. And so your dog's going to run across that scent path, but not know where you started, not know what direction you went. So you can lead it into a place that it never needed to be. It could be a worse place. And we all know that when we come home, our dogs go, Mama's home. They know the car.
Right.
Car has a scent. Probably especially your guys with as many dogs have been in your cars, coming from the shelter, all that, right? So you've got this incredibly concentrated, scent-filled vehicle.
Yeah.
If you guys ever lost a dog, you just park your car out there and leave the doors open, and your dog can jump right in. Oh, I know that. Yes, Mom. You know.
We should try that.
Yes.
Time.
They also have an ear for it. They've got, but the car has a scent too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you go driving around all over the place, you could actually lure them away. And perfect example of this, there's a group in Tennessee. They called me one time, and there was like a 200-acre ranch, rural Tennessee. 2 doodles have been gone for 6 days. And they're asking me, like, there's no sighting of these dogs. What do we do? So we talked a little bit about, okay, in 200 acres, where's your water? You find the water, you're going to find your dogs. All the animals are going to find the water. So there was a stream running through, and there was a fence line, barbed wire. And so the owners were on the phone with, on speaker and that. And so I sent them basically out there, and they've been telling me all of what they've been doing. And they're driving around in their Razor, which is like normally loud, obnoxious, don't do that.
Yeah.
But these dogs used to run beside them or ride with them in it. Like, okay, that's different. That's your vehicle. They know that sound. But you driving all over the place, they could be a mile and a half away, hearing in canyons or open fields or whatever, and be chasing you down, but you're moving. You're luring them way the hell where they don't need to be, where they've never been. And they're not in front of you. They're following you, but you're not aware of that. You're looking ahead of you, right?
Oh.
So I said, what I want you to do is grab a bunch of your nasty ass socks and shoes and put them in a mesh bag. Load them up in the Razor. You go out to that place where there was barbed wire fencing, and we actually were able to determine there was some hair stuck to the little spiky things.
Wow.
So, okay, we knew that they were there. So you stay there, you leave that thing idling for 2 or 3 hours. Sit there, take a book. Don't go looking for him or anything like that. Just take a book and relax. Be present and let it idle. And if you hear something coming up behind you, don't react. Because it could be your dog. And if you turn around like, oh my God, there she is. Yeah, there she was. Because that little split movement can actually throw them off.
Yeah, well, it could also be a bear.
Yeah, so they started getting, well, who cares? Whatever.
I'm
not out there. They're out there. It's not my problem.
Okay.
So,
noted.
I mean, I know. But so the next morning I get the call. And I'm like, okay, so we're going to need to refine some things. Maybe they're going to give me a little bit of input or whatever. Both dogs were home.
Aww.
So from that spot, I told them to drive that Razor back, dragging that dirty laundry. Straight line home. Both of them were home that morning.
So they almost established a new scent by using that extra smelly stuff to take them home?
It was just like, here's where that sound was all that time. Mom was sitting down over here. We have Mom's scent kind of embedded in the ground.
Yeah.
And now there's a scent trail directly to the home. It was like a half mile. And they'd been there so many times running through that space that they knew their way anyway. But the fact that they hadn't been seen in 6 days and all of a sudden next morning they were home because of this. I mean, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But that sound is important. Scent is critical. And if you spread that all over the place, you got a problem.
Yeah, it's so counterintuitive.
Yeah. Our dog Rocket, who you helped us rescue in the first place, was then adopted. His adopters went out of town, left him with a dog sitter, and unfortunately, total accidentally, as it happens, he got away on a walk. And the one thing you said to do was grab dad's or mom's clothes, hang them on the fence at the sidewalk, and you said to put flour at the front door.
Yeah. If you put flour, in the absence of cameras, if you don't have a security camera or anything like that, we always want that scent item to be monitored. Because let's say you're out in Santa Monica Mountains or something, you go hiking, and then your dog gets loose and okay, go, great. You put your scent items there, but if you can't monitor, you have no idea whether or not your dog has been there, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So in an urban environment, you've got Ring cameras or whatever. So we want to try to monitor to see if the dog is actually coming back. So, basically you've got to sprinkle it really lightly, really evenly. But the point is to make it so uniform and so thin, you've got this pure white circle. Because no other animal is going to come up and sniff your nasty ass feet. But your little dog's going to go, mama, 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 mama. So her prints are going to be all over that circle because she's going to be losing her mind. So you can tell from the next morning, if you don't have a camera, that the footprints in the flour.
Yes.
So
well,
now we can start doing something to take some action.
Yeah.
In Rocket's case, though, mom and dad came home. They had driven, 8 hours to go camping, and they turned around and came home. And they slept that night with the door cracked just a little.
Yeah.
And Rocket came home, pushed his way through the door, and dad was sleeping on the sofa, hopefully waiting for his boy, and he jumped in his arms.
Yeah.
I'm home.
I'm home.
Let
Did
me
you
tell
miss
you
me?
about my
Yeah.
adventure.
Yeah. Yeah. If your dogs don't have a set of keys, if they're not tall enough to reach the door to unlock it, you got to leave the door open for them to come home.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'll come up, they'll sometimes bang up against the door, scratch the door. And if you don't answer that door,
Right.
off they go again.
And in LA, that was actually like a brave, bold move for mom and dad, but they did it.
Yeah. Well, the thing with that one is that Rocket is seen by a landscaper who tries to help. Lunges and tries to grab Rocket, which only accelerates
Of course.
Yeah.
the speed.
Yeah.
And that cost us hours and hours. Now, Rocket came home on, Rocket's terms when it was quiet, as they
Middle of the
often
night.
will.
Yeah.
So, but, in the meantime, had Rocket continued to be pursued by people, might not have been in that neighborhood, in an hour, because people chase them out of the neighborhood.
Right.
If we could just freeze the world and not have people even see,
Right.
the dog's going to come back on its own.
Yeah.
Almost always.
So what do you say in a world where there are human beings and a dog goes missing, and there are going to be people who see it and think that the best thing to do is to chase? What do you say to those people?
It's hard. It's almost not worth saying anything unless they're with the family, with the rescue, because then you can establish some kind of hardline rules of, we don't want to do that because of this.
Right.
Whether you agree or not, I don't care, but
Yeah.
you got to get on board. Everybody's got to be on the same page. But you can't tell or expect the general public to react and behave any other different. They're trying to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just, like I said, it just ends up being that they're not actually helping. They're making things worse.
And that's why I've noticed on your posters, you put in big bold letters, "Do not chase."
And still,
They
I get
chase.
phone calls saying, "Oh my God, we've been following your dog for 3 miles, and oh my God, it's so fast." I'm like, "You see the pier? Yeah, just make a hard left and go all the way to the end. 600 feet further, please. Stop this."
Oh no.
But again, they're trying to be helpful. They're trying to keep eyes on the dog.
Totally. And I just want to pause for a second because I feel like this is a detail that we should share with our listeners. As far as placement of flyers, because you had specific details, like instructions on how and where we should place the flyers. Can you tell people?
Yeah. So if you think about every intersection you drive through, the slowest you ever go through that intersection is when you're slowing down and making a right-hand turn.
Yeah.
So if you can get your flyer at belly or chest level, pointed kind of at a 45-degree angle on a corner pole, so that when you're going through that intersection, you're looking both ways and all of a sudden, bam, now you're at the eyeball, at belly to chest level, you're at the eyeball of a driver. It is not about pedestrians. It is not about social media. Those can be helpful. There are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of eyes driving by that are going to see those flyers. And if you've got one on every 4 corners, everybody goes through that intersection is going to see it. When we get people that say, oh my God, we've got like 50 or 100 flyers up, I'm like, cool, you got 25 intersections done. Now, look at a map. How many intersections are there in a 2-mile radius? Because that's what you got to cover. And sometimes it can be thousands. It's insane how much work that is.
Right. And just tape wise, because I'm a detail oriented person here. You had the tape that we bought was the just clear
2-inch clear packing tape,
and wrap it all the way around the whatever you're wrapping, up top and bottom.
Yeah. A lot of people just kind of tear off a piece and stick it on there. But if you take a roll of tape and you put it on the ground, 5 years later, you come back, that tape's still stuck to tape.
Oh, yes.
It doesn't work that way if you just take a piece and tape it on something. You've got to wrap it all the way around the pole back onto itself like a belt. And then it's not going to come down. And you put it in plastic sheet protectors with the opening facing downward so that obviously it doesn't accumulate water. But, it's intuitively obvious unless it's your first time you're dealing with the emotions and you just don't think about that stuff. But it's one of those little details that needs to be handled.
And there's plenty of examples of a good way to make these flyers, these posters on your page, which you'll be tagged on all this so people can.
It's just every little thing that we add to a flyer is a greater and further distraction. You need to just go, smack, this is what we got. This is the problem. We don't need it in multiple languages. It's intuitive. Picture of a dog. Doesn't matter if you can read English or not. You know what the problem is, and a big, giant phone number. When we see these multiple phone numbers in a little 12-point font, you're like, you have to be able to see that from the car. Mm-hmm. It's okay online. You've already got their attention. But when you're driving by these flyers, you got that much time to get it.
Yeah.
It just has to be absolutely drop dead simple. And we catch dogs with flyers. It just has to be designed right. We don't even want the dog's name on there because we don't. If we assume the dog's scared, do you want a bunch of random people going, "Come here, Fido"? Dog's gonna be like, "Get away from me."
Yeah. Everyone here is nuts.
So it's just lost. Big picture of the dog with no background, and then a giant phone number. And do not chase.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so this is just a question that I need to ask because I myself am a very intuitive person, and like you and I have been down rabbit holes going after dogs that we don't even know, we've never even met before, but somehow are in the area and feel like we need to help these dogs. And for me, it's in those situations a very intuitive thing. Mm-hmm. I don't have your guru-ism in me to think, okay, this is where this dog is going. I more feel about the dog. I just open my mind and try and feel like if I were this dog, where am I?
Right.
What would you say your process is with that? Are you doing both things? And also, is that something that we should ask the owners, if they're not a very intuitive or empathic person, say this is where you need to shift your energy and just kind of open your mind and be open to receiving thoughts from the universe about your dog?
I would actually rather owners focus on the mechanical aspects.
Okay. That was my question.
There are some people that have got some really good built-in antennas,
Yeah, certainly.
But I'm not going to take my whole game plan and go, okay,
right,
we're going to do that.
Yeah.
Something to keep in mind. Maybe along the way we see some things and go, But I'm also not, I just need the owners to do very specific things, very mechanical, because they're already so emotional. So if you can control that by giving them a lot of, get them into project management mode, that kind of thing. And that goes back to flyering too, that people's first instinct is I'm going to go out there and search for my dog. And me and my friends are going to go search for your dog. Okay, so you guys have got 2 eyes in your head. Collectively, you've got 20. Or you can spend the time putting flyers up and not actually looking and hunting your dog down. And by the end of the day, you can have 50, 40,000 people who have seen your dog who now might actually be able to call and report. So spend your energy doing this,
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't find your dog in the first half hour, get some help. Start focusing on doing different things.
Focus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're driving yourself crazy.
Totally.
You're going to be spinning in circles. You're going to be doing all the wrong things. Sometimes you can undo those things. Sometimes not. So.
Have you ever lost a dog?
I personally have not lost a dog, but actually my little guy sitting here was a dog that I rescued, I think in like 2016 from Apple Valley. I was still just kind of independently rescuing then, and on Facebook I saw him and he was on his last hours of life. This little man. And I jumped in the car and went and rescued him. At the time, I lived kind of in Malibu, in this neighborhood, and my neighbor I sent her the picture of him, and she's like, we're interested in adopting him when you come home. So we came home. I brought him to my house. I have another dog named Taco, and they hung out for the afternoon together, and it was a bromance from the get-go. And Tracy and Addison, her son, came over and met Ducky, fell in love, and wanted to adopt him. So, she took him home. Over the next, I would say, 2 weeks, this boy escaped a backyard probably 13 times. She did not tell me this until the 13th time I came home, and guess who's at my front door?
Oh.
He had missed his taco.
Mm-hmm.
And Tracy shows up at my house and her eyes are huge and like she's crying and she's scared.
Looking for this?
Yeah. And, there's coyotes in the neighborhood. He had to like scale a canyon. This guy had chosen his home and his friends.
Yeah.
And
they weren't your next door neighbor.
No.
You're making it sound like he just hopped over the
no,
fence.
we were
found you.
Yeah, we were on different sides of, she was probably almost a mile away from me, and he made it home back to, it wasn't his home yet. But I said to Tracy, I'm like, I'm sorry, but I think he chose us. And
he likes me more than you.
Yeah. And she's like, when I tell you that our backyard, and I've been there, it was like invincible. You couldn't, he was scaling like block walls to get out of there. Yeah. And I know that about him now. But they get something in their head and they make it happen. And so Ducky became ours, and he and Taco's bromance lives on.
It's interesting. You said going through the canyons in that mile from one house to the other. I cannot tell you how many people will immediately think that a dog is just dead because we have coyotes. These dogs are smart. They're going to go out there. They're going to use their nose, which is so much better than ours. The smaller the dog, everybody thinks, oh my God, it's just terrible. But they can get into the smaller holes.
Right.
Yeah.
And the stuff you read out there, all the social media about coyotes and packs of coyotes, well, people don't understand. You will never have multiple packs. They're highly territorial. They will kill each other. First base. And what you see is mom and dad, sometimes one or two of last year's offspring that are still kind of hanging, and then the babies are teaching them to hunt. So while you may have 6, 7 coyotes, whatever, most of them aren't very good at hunting.
Oh, they're babies.
They're babies, yeah. And like with Charlie.
Right.
My boy actually
Join the pack.
Yeah, just made a girlfriend out of him. So I mean, they were buddies. They were just out there all the time, and he was actually hanging out. I've got pictures of Charlie in a park with 2 coyotes. So it's not
Charlie,
a death sentence for sure if you get dogs that are lost in potentially nasty areas. But you cannot allow that panic to force you to go into those ravines and canyons, and because again, they're scared, they're going to run away. You may discover them, but now they feel so vulnerable because you've invaded that one spot that they felt safe that they're not going to come back. And now they have to go figure out another safe spot, and they may not make it to that spot.
Got it.
So that's why we don't go in and hunt them down.
Yeah.
Always being aware of what direction the wind is blowing. It's critical.
Oh my God, I've never considered the direction of the wind.
Well, because I can smell you.
Yeah, well, that makes perfect sense now.
So,
but
I mean, if you're the dog and I'm right here and the wind is blowing from me to you, that dog is going to not only smell me from a long ways away, but it also helps to carry the sound to you. These boots are tied, but normally my boots are not tied.
I was going to say that when you walked in today.
Yeah.
Your boots are tied.
I know. Yeah, I finally learned. I figured we're not going to be catching dogs. I don't need to take my shoes off.
They're not leaving me.
But
obviously.
Yeah, it's you have to know those things, and you have to be super aware of where you step. I mean, not only for snakes, you got to be 3-4 feet ahead, no matter wherever you're going to be, but you have to know that you're just not stepping on things because it's all sound. So,
on top of that note, I would like to bring up our rescue. We had named her Little You, but her parents named her Macy. And she was the one in
the park.
The park. But again, you weren't there initially.
Right.
But you were instructing us. Like we were basically learning her moves. And it had come down to she had been living in this park for weeks and weeks and weeks. Little white fluffy dog, totally matted. At the time she was limping because she was so matted. Her like mats were tied together and causing it, painful for her to walk. And she would sleep under these bushes. And lo and behold, you're like, watch her when you guys approach her. What does she do? And we're like, well, she runs along this fence line, and then there's this hole in the end of the corner of the fence, and she takes off into a construction site. And you're like, let's see where she is tomorrow. So we came back.
Yes, but that's a really good point, is that the first day was just watching.
Yeah.
There was not like, there she is, she's arm's distance away, like let's just grab her, because that has a lasting impact on her and she would never get close to us again. Right. So I think important first note is first day was watching.
Yeah, even with the turkey.
Well, we did this thing where we got the burgers and we left them out.
Oh,
and
yeah.
when we came back the next day, she just ate the patty.
Yeah.
She didn't eat the bun.
I left the burger by the hole, knowing or hoping she'd come back.
Yeah.
Well, she did come back.
She did. She came back in the night and she just ate the patty. And the next morning we're like, holy shit, the bun is still here.
Yeah.
And then you were like, don't do that. We need her to be hungry.
Yeah.
And so the next couple of days, we kind of learned her. And then I think it was day 4.
I think it was day 4.
And it was...
that you came out.
Yeah, we got...
Finally.
Yeah.
I know. What were you doing?
I don't know. Your business.
We got a bunch of volunteers. You brought that gigantic net of yours. And there was a plan. And your plan was based on what you were just saying about pressure, applying pressure.
Yeah. If you, one of the things we talked about with that was that when you apply that spatial pressure from one particular direction, what direction does she move to? And it was always toward that hole.
Yeah, we learned
that. Now, had you come in where you're coming in from between the hole and the dog and you apply the pressure, she's not going to run past you to go to the hole. She's going to go somewhere else.
A whole new thing that we don't know.
Right. So if we know, and this is one of the things that's really important with rural type environments, or even urban to a degree, when people say, well, I saw the dog dart out of this bush. Okay, where were you? And what direction did the dog go? Because it's running to its next favorite spot.
Totally. Yeah, we knew where she slept.
Yes.
And we knew when we woke her up and she saw us that she would run a specific direction.
Yes.
And we needed to make sure she was going to stay in that
Right.
direction.
And so we set people at the end of that track that were spaced out and parallel to the fence that we needed her to run against. And if you watch that video, she's looking at everybody going,
where's the gap?
What
What the hell is
okay,
happening?
I'm just going to go this way. Yeah, good girl.
Yeah.
And then, boop,
She ran
done.
right to that net.
And then you were screaming, my ears started bleeding, things like that.
God.
She screamed.
And I got the money shot, but just barely. That was like one of the.
That was a check your
heartbreak.
energy moment.
That was. Because
But it
I
was
had
okay.
the
We were
phone
done.
and she's running. So, we had this line of people down this side of this track. So a large space.
Yeah.
Anything could have happened.
Yeah.
And the end people where she was started applying pressure on her and she started running. And then everybody else started coming in with the pressure and she's running. And there's Mike with a 6-foot wingspan and a 6-foot net who swoops down
In front of.
of her.
But at
Yeah.
the last second, too,
Oh, yeah.
because that's what you were freaking
You were so
about.
panicked about
yeah,
that.
you're like, Mike, she's coming because you
like, I
don't
know.
put the net down until
Yeah.
the moment she's there.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm got the phone in my hand on record, and as soon as you scooped her, my hands went up in the air. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit!
Yeah,
And I
forget
missed the
the
whole
footage.
money shot.
Forget
Yeah.
the footage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But I love that you have that. We can watch it over and over.
Yes.
And then you can just remember Mike is going to put the net down.
Yeah.
We just know he'll put the net
Right.
down.
That was my first experience with Mike and the nets. The next
Yeah.
time we were better.
Yeah.
Well,
The next time was the alleyway.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
She had all sorts of plans. And
Yeah.
we had people from the neighborhood pushing her. Anyway, that's a different
that's a whole
Yeah.
different little dog.
Well, the thing was like with her and with the net and that is that if you can imagine, if you need them to run a specific direction and they're bordered by a fence where they can't get out of the way, and you capitalize on this chaos behind them by amplifying that pressure to get them to run, because a dog that's trotting can change directions on you in a split second. So in situations like this, you better have somebody who knows what they're doing with a net, because if they miss, you're screwed.
Oh, yeah.
Because you've already put a lot of pressure on them, and that dog may not come back.
They're never coming back.
Right. So if I'm there, I have to keep that net out of view. It's got to be on the side. I have to know that I've got 15 feet between me and that fence that I know I can close in a heartbeat. You guys have to amplify that speed to where she's at a full run and she sees me and that fence as a gap and there's no threat. You are a far bigger threat than me.
Right.
Whatever this dude's got in his hands, I don't know, but boom, committed.
Yeah. And she's moving
when they're
fast enough to where she
committing,
can't turn around.
You
Yeah.
can't change directions.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's when I will throw the net in front of them. And she obviously was so little, I just picked her up and now she's like going,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
she was real pissed.
Yeah.
she was real pissed. But
Well,
then
for a second.
for a second,
Yeah.
Oh, she's
But-
not pissed anymore.
No.
That's
Oh,
for
no,
sure.
no.
This dog's living her best life.
No,
And
she
that was-
could put her feet up on my shin,
Oh, yeah.
and
Well,
there's like in a couple of seconds, I'm
Yeah.
like,
But
well,
that's-
that's unusual.
that was the magic for me, was seeing the shift from this feral little girl who had been like on the run and fending for herself for, we were told, like weeks or months at this point. And she was
27 years,
She was like
maybe.
yeah.
She looked it.
She
Yeah,
was
right.
like only a year old. So she had been out there, a percentage of her life. And to see the eyes shift
Yeah.
was magical
Yeah.
for me. And then actually she came home with me to foster because we are control freaks. And like we
Good.
were so scared. She slept with her leash on. I wouldn't take her leash off. Even
Tied
at
around
my
your big
house.
toe.
Yeah. I mean, there were days she slept. We would not take that leash off for days. I
Yeah.
was like, I'm not.
Well, there's no reason to.
Yeah. Oh, and that's the other thing. Mike has us zip tie the crates shut as
Yeah.
if like taking no chance
Hannibal
that this
Lecter.
dog can get out.
Yeah.
So we took her back to Deity, put the
He
crate.
put the fear of God in us.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, I'm not taking this leash off.
No. But as soon as we got to Deity and I had to cut the zip ties, and I opened her crate, and we just sat there looking at each other for a little while. And she decided, like, hey, I'm going to give this new, like, domesticated life a try. And she inched out a little bit and got into my lap. And from that moment on, she's like, all right, I'm in.
She liked it.
Yeah.
You know, and that brings us to another point, too, is that how we deal with recently captured dogs, recently adopted dogs. There's really no reason to take that leash off of them, because it's a lot easier to catch a leash than it is a dog. Mm-hmm. They have to do a step on it. You slam a door on it, you know, whatever. And yeah, it's going to be an inconvenience for a bit. But until you know that dog and that dog has stabilized and then come up like, okay, I can do this. I can get into this. But prior to that little mental shift in that dog, they're ready to go at any moment. They're looking at doors. Door opens up. They're staring at it.
Yes.
Escape route. Okay, you know, that kind of thing. So stabilizing them. And this is one of the things that Carla's pack is really good at. And,
yeah.
It's so awesome that there's some people that just get it. So many people want to take this dog and just show them love, which is scary to them. Because everything else has been scary up until this point. And now you're sticking your face in there. You could be the most amazing person on the planet, but it ain't happening for the dog. Dog's like, no, I don't know you. I don't trust you. I don't feel right. My whole world has just changed. Yeah. The amount of, again, chaos. It's different chaos, but it's still a form of chaos in that brain. So until they stabilize and start to warm up to everything, it just makes nothing but sense to crate them, leave them alone. They don't need your love. They need stability. They will love you, but you can't force yourself into that. I mean, that's hard for people because in rescue, everybody's very empathetic and they're like, my God, this dog has had such a horrible life. I need to help change that. Yeah, you do. Just give it time.
Give it a sec.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see the shift in the eyeballs too.
Yes.
From when they're in, especially a dog who's on the run.
Yeah.
A dog from the shelter, you have a little bit more time to develop that relationship. But a dog on the run is like seeing a different color.
Oh, yeah.
Until that settles.
And then you put them in that trap and then everybody just leaves them alone, sits quietly, and you can just see them just, okay, it's not as bad a day as I thought it was.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
It's so
rip the
interesting
scab
to
off thing.
think back on these different ones that we've done together, and you can really see that it is pretty mechanical. Like we've got a routine down and that routine works. We're lucky to know this routine and see that it works, but it is truly counterintuitive. It is nothing that I would have expected before I got into this business.
Totally.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's been very much a learning experience.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Just want to tell you that Lindsay and I have this theory about you that, like, in your past life, you were like a sniper for.
We do believe that you were a sniper.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can say that will change my mind.
Yeah. We think that that's how,
He's like, I can't disclose that information.
Yeah, right.
Can't speak about that.
It's funny because a lot of people talk about, well, I'm going to go get a trap and I'm going to do this. And my thing is always, look, I mean, anybody can buy a trap, but it doesn't make you a trapper any more than if I go buy a rifle, it makes me a sniper. The amount of time it takes to get good at it. I mean, anybody can open up a trap and throw something in there. You throw a cheeseburger in or what. Yeah, you're going to have some success, but you're also going to have some failures. And you better be willing to open up and discuss them. And you just, it's a different mindset. It literally is hunting without harming. Mm-hmm. I love collaborating with people and showing them things and that kind of thing. It's awesome when everybody's working together and, learning and that kind of thing. Yeah.
There is one other rescue that I want to ask you about, because I feel like if you live in a city, this might be a situation that you find yourself in. There was a dog a couple of years ago. We named him Russ. Do you remember him?
Yes. Russ, the one that you showed up like 2 minutes too late?
Yes, of course. Yes. Again, like I missed the money shot.
I was there this time.
Yes.
Yeah, he was there and you weren't.
I missed the money shot. Yeah. Damn LA traffic.
Yeah.
But
well, I didn't wait either. So
you weren't waiting for me. You had your opportunity. But the situation of this dog was he was living literally under a car on a busy street in downtown East LA, somewhere like that. And the woman who lived in the home called us and said, hey guys, there's this little dog. He's been living underneath my car. I don't know what to do because I don't want to like push him out into the traffic. This was a busy road.
Right.
So what was because I missed it. I didn't get to see that one. How did you get that dog? Because I got there and there's Mike in his net. And the dog's in the net.
Yeah. So when I got there, like if you know that the dog is at this address, you don't pull up at that address. You give it some space. But then again, this dog really didn't care. You could have probably pulled a tire up right next to it, used it as a wheel chalk, and it wouldn't have really cared. Because it was actually, when I first saw it, sleeping outside of a parked car that was parked parallel to the traffic. So it was right there almost in the lane of traffic.
Oh. Gives me chills.
And just sacked out. Done. So I walk up, I talk to her, and I'm seeing the dog, and the dog's kind of like, okay, well, getting up and moving and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and grab the net and we'll see how things go. And I set it up, and I'm just ignoring the dog 100% because the dog is very confident, not fearful. It owns the street. It's just not super bright about where it sleeps. So, it's just basically wandering around, and people are walking back and forth. And I always observe, what does a dog do when people don't pay attention to it? Can you walk by and just ignore it, and then all of a sudden, boom, drop a net on it, or is it always going to, skirt?
Which is what he had been doing, because she had been trying to get him, and he would do a lap like around her house to the alley and then back out to the street.
Right. But what I observed was different. The dog was much more confident. If people did not have that intention, the dog was just like, whatever. Couldn't care less. I saw people walking by who didn't even look at this dog and couldn't care less. So at one point, I think it was her dad that needed to leave for work. And we're like, oh, come on. Because these kinds of things can cost you hours. Right. Maybe forcing the dog out of the way of the car, dog runs around the block like you were saying, that he did. So I kind of had to accelerate things. So, I couldn't wait for you. But basically the dog was like right there by the back tire, and everybody was, up in a driveway. So I just kind of needed to go for it. And so I walked by with my big old net, and they were busy talking, kind of distracting. And, he's looking at me going, okay, well, what's going on? I walked past the car and then turned right around.
But in the street on the car?
No, the dog was actually right up like on the sidewalk and in the driveway.
Okay, so he wasn't out in the street at this point.
Right,
okay.
By that time he'd gotten up. So I walked past the car intentionally with my net, knew where he was, and knew where his attention was, how far away he was from the wheel and stuff like that. And as soon as I walked past, I just spun back around and went, bam, got him.
Tricked them.
Yeah. Of course, he's flipping out. And
yeah, he did.
Like, sorry, bro.
I was there
Dirty
for that.
ass little trick.
Yeah, we can't be sleeping in the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's little dirty tricks like that, but.
It was a good one.
Yeah.
So good. He was another one. As soon as he decided that he liked sleeping inside better than outside.
Yeah. And he's got kids for a family. Yeah. Because I remember, I've seen them running in the backyard and stuff. It's awesome.
Life.
Yeah. So good.
It's an amazing feeling when we're successful at these things.
Totally. Yeah.
And fortunately, we've had a lot of success.
We have. We've been blessed.
Yeah.
Well, I want to tell the listeners how to find you. Also, if they do lose their dog or if they're looking for a dog, do they call you? Or so how do they get in touch with you?
Instagram is catching_paws. Facebook is catching paws. Phone number is 657-221-9443.
Okay.
This is an important number to know. If you need to put that in your phone.
Oh, I didn't. I was like, let's laugh over that. No one can hear the number.
No, it's the biggest thing as a rescue. If you lose a dog, Get me involved fast. Keep your foster or your adopter in check. Tell them to freeze. Don't do anything. Dogs will come back to the place that they last knew. Given space and time, no pursuit, that dog is going to circle back to the last place it knew.
Oh.
Now, what we do with it from there is, challenging.
Right.
If it's your dog, just open up your gate. If your dog has been gone for a long time, you open up your gate. We take chicken broth from the sidewalk and drizzle it and go all the way around to the backyard to the furthest point away from that gate. That's when you can put the dog's bed out there and some food or whatever. And if you see it in the middle of the night, you don't open up the slider and go and engage because you still got a gate open. And their brain might not be ready to receive you yet. So sneak out the front door, close the gate, and then open the door and get out of the way. Mm-hmm. When your dog's ready to come in, it may be like right now, or it may be the next morning. You just never know. Yeah. But the faster I can get involved to prevent some of those normal mistakes from happening, the better our chances are of getting things done faster. So, and when mistakes are made, I mean, everybody always tells me like, oh my God, we've completely screwed it up. You tell me we completely, like, look, man, everybody does.
Right.
And we can still be successful. You just got to commit to moving forward like this.
Well, thank you so much for coming out and being here with us today from your perch, from the command center, the command center.
Right.
All the times that you're with us, whether physically or on the phone. Right. They're both very meaningful.
We appreciate it all.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.